Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Oh, it's been way too long. My Newfie brother, Jordan Shallow, it's great to have you back. Even
Pleasure,
though, like,
always.
I think you were born there and like still in the cradle and then moved to Windsor, Ontario, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, man, I had my passport stamped, or I guess not a passport because it's within the country, but I would spend, I spent the first couple of years there, and then I was back and forth. I'd probably do half my year in Newfoundland by the time all sold. So yeah, Newfoundland's got my heart. It's actually the only piece of property that I have to my name is still in Newfoundland.
Right. I heard you talk about that on RXD Radio, which, you're the co-founder of that. I'll give you more of an intro, but I think in Newfoundland, I don't feel like I'm in the same rarefied air, but our good friend, Frank McGrath, he's a very close old friend of mine. I'm going to try to get him on the podcast. And then Jeff Nippert is also an original Newfie as well. So,
yeah, odd that, I mean, three people of varying significance come from such a remote part of the world. Most people don't even know where it is on a map.
It's like the number of well-known Newfoundland NHL hockey players. Not a lot when you think about it.
Terry, wow, what's his name?
Terry Ryan. He's actually a very close old friend of mine. I'm going to get him on the podcast at some point. Terry's hysterically. He's on the show Shoresy.
He's
wild,
man, dude.
He's wild.
He is what, like, he is. If you obviously Jeff and Frank, you, myself, like, fitness and Newfoundland are almost antithetical, right? Like, it's almost like something that people, Morgan McDonald, also you could throw in that category as well. But it's like it's bodybuilding and fitness is almost antithetical to the spirit of sitting down and drinking, telling stories, and playing instruments. Like, it's just.
I think for a very long time, Newfoundland had the highest obesity rate in Canada. I don't know if it still holds that distinction. You're nodding yes, so I'll trust you.
Proper ding by yes.
All right, a little bit more about you. So that you're the co-founder of Prescript. I've got my level 1 manual that you wrote right here. I love this course. It's phenomenal. It is the biomechanics and training anatomy thing, and you are the leading expert in that field. You are a world traveler. You train elite pro athletes, all sports, and other people that don't go on your social media. If anybody wants to go listen to some of these stories, RXD Radio, I listen to it. It's a great time. And you spoke at my conference back in 2023 here at Edmonton. Thank you for that. Okay, let's get you wound up because I love your irascible wit about things. What's going on with this social media battle between, quote, science-based creators and, you know what? I don't even know if I want to even call them coaches, okay? And then traditional evidence-based, hard training advocates. This episode is brought to you by Renaissance Periodization and the RP Hypertrophy app. RP is the industry leader in muscle building, coaching, and education. This app is like having a coach in your pocket. It gives you everything you need, including training programs, form videos. It gives you all your sets, reps, and weights, so you just show up and follow the plan. It adjusts each week based off your progress. And the app was created by Dr. Mike Isertel, Nick Shaw, and the team at RP, who I've known for many years. And the entire team are incredible people who've always been supportive and generous with me, so I know their character and are easy to endorse. My library contains several RP books, and I've used RP training principles in my workouts and coaching with my clients for many years, long before the explosion in popularity of their YouTube channel, which is worth checking out. RP is the first sponsor I felt remotely comfortable endorsing after over 7 years of podcasting. And if hiring a one-on-one coach isn't for you, using the RP Hypertrophy app is the next best thing to maximize your gains and take the guesswork out of your program. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. If you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. And I've also got a serious discount for you of up to $50 US. Go to rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP, or go to the link below in the show notes, and that's rpstrength.com/coats. Use the code COATSRP.
Yeah, I mean, I think controversy is just a lazy way to draw attention to yourself. It's a lazy way to find a polarizing audience that's constantly churning. Like, I really don't think, like, I don't see what the issue is, right? Like, the world has very divisive, polarizing issues going on right now. Like, pick any international conflict out of a hat. And that's like, those are people that feel very passionately about different stances on ways of thinking and ways of being. Training is just not that. it's contrived drama to call attention to curtailing 50% of an audience that pretends to care. It's like you and I have been on social media long enough to sort of know, like, there's nothing at stake, right? Like, this is the equivalent, and I'm dating myself, but hopefully that you can carry along with this analogy. It's like, whose line is it anyways? This is what social media is. It's like there's no rules and the points don't matter. It's like, what are we doing? So, I mean, what do I think? I don't think about it, man, because I just think it's, to me, the whole thing is just antithetical to the philosophy that I try and impart through social media. It's like, the antidote to a bad idea is a better idea. I don't need to take your thing and dredge it through the mud, and then for the last however long I have left in my reel, be like, oh, this way instead. It's like, I don't have time for that. Like you said, like, there's stuff that I do. I have a job, and it's just, my job is to not create content. And thank God for that, because who knows if I would be pulled into that trap. And like, it's not exactly throwing dispersion about at those who do practice that. I just don't think that the arguments are even worth having. So it's just, I don't really have a thought about it. I wish everyone on either side of the aisle well. If you get the results you want, then great. That's cool. But it's just something that I'm just apathetic to. It's like, I don't really have a contentious viewpoint. Don't tag me in anything. I mean, tag me in dog videos, sure, right? Or like desserts with Nutella in them, absolutely. But other than that, like, it's just, it's unfortunate that it's taking this thing and it's politicizing it. It's like training is like, I was just talking to a friend of mine. Like, when I think about the potent tools that can change your perception, the more often than not, this conversation leads down the route of meditation and drugs, right? People who smoke peyote don't look at people who take mushrooms and go like, but bro, psilocybin, are you serious? Like, have you fucking ripped a Benjamin of DMT lately? Like, what are you? Yeah, they're like, yeah, that's cool, man. And like, people who meditate, like Vipassana, you do Vipassana yoga. Like, you do Vipassana meditation? Like, and these are potent levers to pull to change your perception. Exercise is right there with them. Yeah, we sit around like a bunch of trend up dick bags and we just argue over nonsense, and people go, yeah, I'm just going to go do drugs instead. I'm just going to go. There's no argument over, the stoners over there at the Grateful Dead concert. So actually, I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm going to go fucking sit cross-legged in Lotus and, and just start doing toad venom or whatever the fuck. It's like, exercise is that tool, but we fucking politicize it like morons, and people get pushed away from it. It's like, hey, drugs and meditation are cool too, but exercise is also cool.
And the pushing away is a really good point on this. So let's go into some of maybe the actual like tactical stuff there. Because I recognize this for what it is too. It's outrage, it's branding, it's trying to like own positions within, the space. But do you think in a way there's an attempt either to brand around or feed an audience that wants to out-science its hard training? Are they trying to hack something that can't be hacked?
Are they trying to out-hack something that can't be hacked? Yeah. I mean, I think so, and I feel like you and I are probably similar. You cut from a similar cloth, similar generations, where the science was hard training before, right? Like, good luck selling any of this stuff to some of the late greats, Charles. Who else is not? I mean, even on the strength and conditioning side, Charlie Francis, or if the people are still with us, the Thibodeaus, or the people that you look to for the early, the renaissance of science in the media sphere of training, was the most brutal training. Like, you look at it now, and even as someone who's as someone who prides themselves in hard training, I've trained in some of the more hardcore gyms with some of the more hardcore coaches, especially in my powerlifting career. And I look at some of their stuff and I'm like, yo, guys, like, take it easy. This is nuts. But there's a survivorship bias to what works. So, like, do I think that's, they're competing in a different landscape, right? Like, if the platform you compete on doesn't have a Eleiko plates and deadlift bars, but it has likes and follows, then your reward systems are skewed for a particular result. So it's just like, for me, it's just, I don't think what they're arguing is, because it's the thing about beliefs. When you attack a belief, you're not attacking an idea, you're attacking an individual. And it's like that's the thing. It's like I don't have necessarily like a training belief. I have things, and this is where the science thing comes in. Like I have things that I believe on sufficient evidence that I like to think are factual, that are validated. But it comes from understanding what evidence is, right? Evidence is sure it's research, but it's also experience and it's also values, right? And I think this is where you're going to see people who are maybe a little bit more of the old school persuasion. I think the issue is they talk past each other because one understands what evidence is and the other just thinks that research is evidence. It's like, no, research proves that you know how to read. Evidence is a body of, it's this sort of three-pillared milk stool that stands on this leg of, your values or values and preferences, your experience, and also best practice. So I really think, the whatever contention back and forth, I'm going to put my face in your reel and talk about your methodologies, and then you're going to do the same, and then so we roll this out onto the streets of YouTube, and then it gets longer form, and then someone who's opportunistic sees that, like, oh, I'm going to get both of these guys on a podcast. And it's like we're not even basing the argument on the same thing, right? Like we're basing one person is talking about evidence and the other person is talking about research, and we're just kind of like talking past each other. It's like I have shit to do. So
I think there's an element of like Batman needs a Joker, Joker needs Batman for both to exist and be relevant in a way.
Well, the best part about that analogy is none of them are real, right? Like that's the best part about Batman and Joker is they're all fictional characters, which is pretty much people who waste and pollute their time days and nights worrying about the contrived arguments of a fictitious other side. It's like, what is that old saying? If you stare into the abyss, be careful because it'll start to stare back at you. And it's just like, yeah, I think the Batman and Robin thing, or the Batman and Joker is a great analogy because they're both non-player characters, like just these made up things.
And this is why I, off air, anybody listens to me who's talked to me, this is why I point to you guys and Prescript as it's my favorite. Again, I'll use the terms biomechanics and training anatomy because fundamentally these are, you've used the language pillars or foundations of your learning as a coach. And I also try to speak to, the enthusiasts here. So enthusiasts who want to learn about these things, they'll probably get a lot more out of listening to you and your media than getting down the rabbit hole of these stitch wars that I'm not an anxious person by nature, but my mental health would take a very serious downturn if I ended up in these stitch wars and I wake up and I'm tagged a bunch of stuff and somebody's armies come over and saying horrible things. And that shit just gets, I mean, you can look at the Joey Swole incident recently, if anybody's familiar with what happened with him. Okay, so quick thing. He posts up a 5-year-old video of him dressed up as Hulk Hogan for Halloween. Hulk Hogan was his hero as a kid. Anyway, so then, of course, big cancel attack because Hogan, said some really, really awful racist shit years ago, whatever. And the portion of the world that definitely will never forgive no matter how much you apologize went after Joey. Joey pulled the video down, apologized, said something. He chose poor language in something else, then gets further canceled and attacked. And then he basically puts up this cryptic post about how he's like, that's it, he's done. And then he edits it to be like, I'm done with social media for a while. 2 days later, he's back. And it's just this giant shitstorm of stuff. But guess what? You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Right? And Joey, and I like him, he lived by the sword, calling everybody else out, rightly or, whatever your belief system is. And then guess what? The mob came after him. And I can't imagine what his mental health was like on that day.
Probably the same as the day before or after. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if the sword is, I mean, I get the analogy. We're not exactly dealing with Damocles here. I think it's just social media, it's just, what it is. It's like, I mean, I don't even know if we want to go down this road, but
you don't have to.
Are you familiar with Plato's allegory of the cave?
You'd have to refresh me.
So, it's sort of like it's a mainstay of Western philosophy where it's this representation of reality where he talks about, slaves that were born in a cave that they only see shadows from a fire burning behind them on this wall and they think that's reality. And then they turn around and break free and they see the fire and then they realize, well, that's not actually the source of truth. And then so it's all a representation. But it's like this day and age, it's like not even Plato's allegory of the cave. It's Plato's allegory of the screen share. Imagine we went on a screen share. We just had this infinite regress into screen sharing us, screen sharing us, and screen sharing us. It's just people just there's so much, there's an overrepresentation that just pulls the meaning out of everything. Right? It's like we're so many layers of inception deep that it's like, like the sword, live and die by the sword. That probably meant something in the Vlad the Impaler days, right? If Vladdy ended up with his head on a spear at the end of his fucking driveway, that would be the ultimate representation. But it's like, wait, what are we talking about here, right? Like some guy, and I met Joey before. He seems like a nice enough dude when I ran into him, but it's just like we're so deep down the screen share to infinity regress that none of it has any meaning. There's no scaffolding and meaning because the representation has just regressed to zero or infinite, depending on which way you want to go. And so it's just like, what it's so unsubstantiative. It's just like, I was 3 blocks away from a guy that shot up a fucking building in New York City last week. It's like, how the fuck could I give a shit about something that happened maybe on social media about, maybe it was an honorarium to a childhood hero, but it's like, I went to the fucking Museum of Natural History and they took down the statue of oh fuck, who was it? Yeah, I was from Night at the Museum. Anyways, they took down it was an American president.
Jefferson.
No, it wasn't Jefferson. He was standing outside. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But it's like the sensationalism machine is just an infinite regress, and it's just like, just turn off the screen, man. Like, does that affect Joey in real life? Like, probably not. As long as he and I'm not to speak into his reality, but like, I'm sure he's got like a great life when he turns his phone down. And so just like close the fucking infinite regress of these windows into infinity, and you'll get meaning back, and you don't have this dilution through representation. So it's just like, I don't know, man. I just have no. It's not. I'm so convinced it's not real at this point that it's just like.
2 things. One is it's not reflective of most people's reality walking through the world. And 2, turn the screen off. Let's pivot. Let's get you off, because I love the philosophy of this. That's beautiful. Whips have Plato, right? This is why I like winding you up. All right. So how about this? How much should the enthusiast lifter, or even someone who's pretty serious about getting muscle and strength, be worried about fatigue as a concept?
Yeah. So this is I've run adjacent to these conversations, so I may not even use the right language. So you can tag me and stuff. I don't really care. But I think, okay, so the idea, so what would be what is the opposite of fatigue in this conversation? Stimulus, right? Like, I think that's sort of like where the lines get drawn. I think the answer that depends is intellectually lazy, but the answer that depends on ... is getting us well on our way. Most people's bottleneck is work capacity, right? And like even at like, and I've experienced this at a very far level, very far afield, but like there was a point in my powerlifting career, let's air quote career, where I recognized that probably the biggest bottleneck to me getting stronger was my cardiorespiratory fitness, right? My interset recoverability pretty much went to zero. Compounds that I was taking was probably scarring my lungs, and I was 280, 290 pounds. I hadn't been on, a walk that didn't cause my low back to get pumped in, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years at minimum. And so it was like, okay, so I am now, even though I can try and push all I want and drugs and food and training, I'm actually bottlenecked by a system that I don't train. And when I think about, okay, so you set the stage like enthusiasts, I would say, well, what's your bottleneck, right? Because like sometimes if people aren't addressing the cardiovascular system and its role in recoverability that is required for these repeated bouts of effort, right, as measured by proximity to failure, which we know is important in the hypertrophy response, or even, the hypertrophy stimulus and subsequent response, then it's like sometimes the fatiguing stuff, it still does. It builds a capacity, right? Fatigue is just going to be something that maybe that gets the bottleneck out of the way for you, right? Because it's just like the general population is the most generalization of all time. Because like I train Gen Pop that are, they're older and they used to run marathons and they got good engines. Tickers up to snuff. As long as we get them in the right position, like they're not going to fail quad extensions on sets of 10, 12, whatever it is in their lungs. They're going to fail it in their quads. Right now, they may fail to squat in some inability to coordinate or co-contract and stabilize their spine, whatever. but it's like it's such a tricky landscape to traverse in general terms, because it's like, how much does like fatigue matter? It's like, well, how much are you limited by your capacity? Because sometimes like people don't like to do cardio, and if they're lifting weights kind of looks like enough cardio for them to move the bottleneck down the line a little bit, then we're opening up the window for greater stimulus. Now, a lot of the high fatigue, or not high fatigue, but a lot of the people who are like trolling the stimulus, and this division really paints over the evidence-based science lifter versus the bro lifter, or whatever the dividing line terms are, or however they're allocated. But I look at that and I go like, well, like there's a big that depends when we're in the middle of the Gaussian distribution, and that depends is like, well, driving fatigue is useful if the adaptation to fatigue is building capacity, which is the thing that bottlenecks your ability to work within a meaningful proximity to failure. It's like, I don't understand how people aren't having that conversation. So that's kind of my take on it, is like, how much does it matter? It's like, well, how much is your capacity a bottleneck? That's how much it matters.
That's a fantastic answer, because I think, number one, I think there are people, and again, it could be social media talking heads that like perpetuate a lot of fear about fatigue or everything. I mean, I think stimulus to fatigue ratio, for sure, it matters the grand scheme of things, especially if you're fairly elite. And that could be exercise selection. It's like, okay, cool. Are we doing, a seated cable row versus like a bent over barbell row? Okay, I get it, right? But I agree with you in that I think, well, one of the ways that charge training helps you is actually build your capacity to train harder. Get a thought.
Yeah, no, that's a muscle that needs training. It's just like that ability to maintain the mental fortitude to push, because like here's like where exercise I think just totally loses the plot. It's completely disconnected from cognitive theory, right? Like I think one of the things that you really need to train, and then people really need to pay attention to, especially when you're training novice clients, is you need to reorient your reward system to change the perception of pain to discomfort and actually make that something that you want to lean into. That's what bodybuilders do really well intuitively, because our perception of our sensory data is not just a switch that our sensation flicks on in our brain, right? Like, yeah, this is an analogy that I've stolen from Sam Harris, but I think it's like it works. If we think about, like, imagine the best leg pump you've ever had, right? You've trained with some really cool people in some really cool places. You may actually know, like, oh yeah, it was this date at this time. It was this person. I was training with this guy. This is what I ate. We did. I was in West Side, or training at Elite, and I ate Bob Evans before, and the sodium, and I was able to train with. For me, I actually do remember it was with John Meadows at S4 with Elite FBS and Dave Tate. Like, may he rest in peace.
I just had Dave on the podcast. Just had Dave Tate on the podcast. Legend. Yep.
Imagine waking up in the middle of the night with the feeling of that leg pump and not exercising. Imagine you would be off to the hospital. You would go, right? Because it's like, now when people experience that for the first time or learn how to experience, it's like you need to reorient their perception that this is not bad. Right? You know how fucking weird that is for someone who had not ever gone through that. And then you go like, all right, we're going to do like maybe some lunges and some quad extensions and like some leg press. And next thing you know, for the first time in their life, they just have this like engorged legs, and then they can't walk. That's a weird perception, right? And like, we need to, and this is to your point about kind of bringing us back to the question, is like, where does the utility of high fatigue come into play? It's like, that type of work, when we reorient the reward system, is, hey, this is what we want and this is good. That changes the fear of the person going like, wait a minute, this feeling is the good feeling? He's like, yeah, like, trust me, a couple of days you'll be sweet. And then when you learn to reorient your perception around your reward system, that is so crucial moving forward. Because like, think of low back pain, for example, and I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent because I think it's a really, really good question. And I think when we have to think a little bit outside of the 800 pixel by 800 pixel machine that dictates the way we think about social, or the way we think about training, i.e. social media, it's like when I teach people how to deadlift, I work one-on-one with clients. It's not a very outward facing part of my job, especially in the last couple of years. It's very private, and these people are more or less anonymous to the rest of the world. But I teach a lot of people how to deadlift. And it's part of a progression and meeting them where they're at, and we're using different variants to get to that position where they can. One of the number one things that I've done that's increased my success in the deadlift, as far as teaching it fast and getting results with the exercise, is I have to break down the normative value that exists in their perception of the movement that will take the experience of soreness and offer it up to them as pain. And I am starting that process from day one. Deadlifts hurt your back, squats are bad for your knees, don't bench press is bad for your shoulders. These are things that exist that literally change the way that people feel. So like, let's say, for example, you and I went and trained biceps, and we took our biceps to the same proximity to failure as like our erectors would be in a deadlift. And we could somehow normalize that experience one-to-one. And the muscles have incurred the same sort of metabolic environment in the low back as they have in the biceps. Well, no one really normalizes bicep curls for being bad at anything, right? Like they're usually good at just growing biceps. So someone may wake up the next day and be like, wow, like my arms are so sore. Like that's so cool. Like, do I have to go like to the tailor? Do I have to like, go chill? Like you don't have to go fucking buy a new shirt. So relax. But that same metabolic response, that same raw sensory data, when offered up, when the normative value is deadlifts are bad for your back, they're going to wake up the next day and be like, sorry, I can't train. My low back hurts. They will feel pain. They will feel pain because, because that O Bears podcast with Rogan that keeps circling every now and then where Rob was talking, but like, dude, you're on the biggest platform in the world. You don't know, because our raw sensory data doesn't just like appear in our brain as pain or not pain. It's weighed in by these normative values and our prior experiences to generate a perception. So it's like you have to understand like kind of what you're doing when you're teaching movements, because it's not just like do this and this will happen. It's like, no, their fucking brain that existed before you started working with them generates their perception. So the same soreness that you could feel in your arms, if you felt that like in your QLs or your erectors or even your lats, quite literally your clients will experience the negative sensation and pain with the same physiological state that could exist in your biceps, but there's no societal normative value of, negative ramifications of bicep soreness. So they go, oh, cool, my biceps are sore. Like I don't really have a previous thought that is going to paint my perception of this experience. But when the low back is sore, people literally feel pain because they've been told, like, oh, we can't deadlift anymore. It's like, dude, chill. So again, we're going to bring this full circle for the last time, I promise, and we'll teeter off this point. But the fatigue and the work capacity stuff and teaching how to work hard is teaching them, hey, look, when you push to this point, this is where you need to be. Now, does this exercise, is that directly one-to-one to stimulus? No, but is that still a vehicle that we need to attach a positive outcome to? Yes. Because we need to change people's perception around the sensations that are associated with exercise. Because most people think if I woke up in the middle of the night and felt this, I would go to the fucking hospital. And it can be hard to embody that perception for someone, we've been training for 20, 30 years, like however long we've been lifting weights for. And we don't know what it's like to not have that reward system. We don't know what it's like to, like, dude, I go to the gym and I train something that like feels good, no pain, like, good pump, moving some weight. I'm the happiest of it, but I've trained for 20 years. I've trained that experience to be positive, rewarding. But again, middle of the night, someone who's never felt that before, they're going to the hospital. So it's like we're presenting them this thing that if in isolation and uncoached and unattached to a positive reward would send them to the emergency room out of fear of their own health and well-being. And we now need to teach them like, hey, this is the goal and this is good. And we want to aim for this. So I think there is something to be said from like a broader coaching perspective about, hey, to fatigue stimulus, what are we doing here? Right? There's a layer of perception that flies well over this because we train human beings that listen to podcasts that tell people insane things about movement, or they have previous experience in maybe hurting their back deadlifting before, or at least experiencing pain. We got to start thinking a little bit more complex than just like reps and sets and fatigue. It's like, this is actually, it seems smart. Like it seems like an intellectual debate to have, but it's actually like so missing the forest for the trees when you do this for a living that it's just like, it's almost laughably trivial.
It's creating psychological safety for the people that are coming in the door. And I'm a big believer in that. And setting it, short way of saying it, it's creating realistic expectations for what they are going to experience.
Yeah. It's. I mean, for me, like the reward system thing is so potent because the goal. I know you've had clients for a long time because it's like the goal of training is to equip people with the skills to not want to train without or to be able to train without you, but to provide such an experience that they're never going to want to, right? So I think in the goal of in pursuit of that first goal, it's like I need to as fast as possible reorient your perception of this sensory information and orient that to success, right? Rather than this discomfort getting oriented as pain, because people will feel pain. But, you and I don't feel pain when we lift, right? We feel progress. We feel that like, oh, this discomfort has been over the course of years and validated by, conversations we've had with other people who lift for the goals that we have. This is the reward, right? Like walking on hot coals would be really painful. But if you're doing it in some sort of like a pursuit of spirituality, it becomes, oh, this is the thing that is actually activating the end result. It's not pain anymore, right? And that's really what you need to do with exercise, because you don't understand, like, and you having a Gen Pop training background and obviously others, but like, in training general population, which is the meat of the people on the bell curve with the money who are going to give it to you to have a career, at least in your early days. And, if it's something that you enjoy, and you should enjoy because it's profound to work with that population, it's like, you need to understand they haven't gone through that walk on the coals yet. They don't understand that burn, to generate a pun, is the thing that's going to, promote their maturity and their growth or whatever it is. So it's like, you need to be the one that uploads that psychological disposition of, look, when you feel this burn, this is the thing that we're going for. Right? You take some tourist off the street, bring them to the Amazon, and be like, yeah, just walk across those hot coals. Like, fuck, my feet hurt. Right? Well, they don't understand the meaning of it, right? It's in this tribe. This is like a Amazonian bar mitzvah, and it's like, so when you watch these kids stoically walk across the coals, it's like, oh, this is them walking into adulthood, or like whatever. It means something different. The raw sensory data is the same. So you just need to change what their experience means and how they perceive it. Like, that is, if you're not doing that, like, what are we arguing about? Fatigue, stimulus. Like, you're sitting around, to borrow from a mutual friend of ours, the Stan Efforting, you're stepping over $100 bills to pick up quarters. I think it's such a dumb argument.
Anybody wants to listen to Stan? Stan was on recently. Brilliant. Just a great dude. All right. Any thoughts on something practical, surface level, maybe, about load management and injury risk? Are there any, smart practices you tend to, the big rock stuff there, idioms that you could distill down?
Yeah, load management. I mean, really, understanding that, and I think it actually dovetails nicely off our previous conversation about, stimulus to fatigue. Look, I think the goal for most people, especially most people who haven't gone through that reorientation process of what that raw sensory data means, and having a reward system really tapped into the discomfort or pain, and having that be something that's desirable and aimed at, I think if the most people should be attempting to train to failure. And I think the way that we adjust for the overall fatigue and recoverability in a program is through the vehicle of exercise selection. So if you have someone back squatting to failure versus someone doing an ipsilateral loaded Bulgarian split squat with no wrist straps and a dumbbell in the same hand of the leg that's forward, this is a very different exercise. We could look at hip and knee and ankle, the ranges of motion, and be like, yeah, it's just similar-ish. But then, like, the demand of co-contraction and like an actual proximity to failure of one particular muscle, and then you layer in a leg press on top of that for contrast across all three. And as long as you look at the net, the net recovery debt of each exercise, I'm pushing everything to failure. I just toggle the switch up and down based off of the loadability of the movement and the number of constraints that exercise has to maximal loadability, where like leg press would be the least amount of constraints, the highest loadability, the least amount of skill, the most amount of output, the greatest amount of debt. And, you know, the ipsilateral Bulgarian dumbbell, no strap, same hand as the foot that's forward. So many constraints, right? It's all kind of hip extension. It's all kind of knee extension. And it's a lower extreme. But I'm just going to toggle those switches. I'm going to put those exercises somewhere in a program that allow me to, at the end of the day, create a stimulus investment that I can recoup, right? And that I'm not going to push myself over. If I go hack squat, leg press, safety squat bar, heels elevated, Hatfield, it's like, and push all of those to failure, it's like, fuck, dude, right? You're quite literally cashing or writing a check your ass, glutes, adductors, quads can't cash. But if I take that same, you know, perceived intensity or proximity to failure and spread that out and go, okay, leg press, Bulgarian, B stance RDL, contralateral load, send all of that to failure. Now it's like, well, we've now invested in a way where we can recoup our investment and the interest, right? Like we've taken the same intent of training to failure, we've spread it across 3 different layers of constraints. And we've now ended up with a net stimulus that we can recover from. So I think exercise selection and fatigue or load management are the same thing, right? And I think at the highest level, I mean, other than training frequency, which would probably be like the meta, like, hey, just fucking train 1 less day a week or train 1 more day a week. Like that is such a needle mover. Like a training session should be something that you do not add in and out at, you know, haphazardly, right? This should be well thought out, because just the amount of recovery debt that you should be incurring with a training session is quite high, right? So I think one step removed from, you know, training frequency is exercise selection, is how loadable are the exercises that you're picking? Because I think everything should be subjectively redlined, but objectively, you can toggle and oscillate that recovery debt based off of the constraints of the exercise. So that's sort of like my high level on load management. Is like, look, you got it, because again, you need to teach people to push. You need them to reorient that reward system to training to something like failure. You need to learn the skill of failing, right? Like one of the things I talk about when we talk about like early athleticism or early athletic development is like, hey, look, everyone knows you put your fucking kid in gymnastics, right? One of the reasons is you teach them how to fall. That's a great skill to learn, right? And I think putting people in situations when they start their weight training and their motor learning sort of process is you want to teach them how to fail, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to teach you how to fail at every single turn, at every single opportunity, because I'm going to teach you to be sensitive of your body's position. And as it starts to deviate and compensate to complete the task, I'm going to sort of license you the ability to call it at that. Because it's like, you know, when you're overpronate the foot in the split squat, or, you know, the heel starts to come up in the RDL or whatever it is. It's like, you need to be sensitive to these changes of position of your body. And that's really, that is a fundamental skill at the bedrock of motor learning, much like learning how to fall is a good proprioceptive tool for a kid that they learn in gymnastics. This is the learning how to fail is the weightlifting resistance training equivalent to that.
I'll add a piece that I think is really relevant too, and that is the pace at which we scale the intensity. So as I understand the research, I dug in, did a presentation on this. If I remember correctly, if over the course of maybe like about a 4-week period of time or whatever, if you make something like a 50% jump from the average of the previous roughly 4 weeks, a 50% jump in, let's say, load intensity volume, then you're going to increase your injury risk. It's like the situation you described. We don't start there with that intensity. You are gradually building someone up from where they start to that level of intensity. And the incremental changes to the difficulty are probably comparatively small relative to a week over a week thing. What's going to get you into trouble is if you take someone who's really deconditioned, who wants to jump back fast, and you throw them, pedals to the floor, red line, day 1, week 1. I think then you're getting into some risky stuff. But I also don't think that it's too often that we see people outside of maybe like a beginner client. We just probably should like dial it back a bit. I don't think there's a lot of situations where you're literally adding 50% load and intensity and volume within that narrow window.
Yeah, I mean, acute to chronic workload ratios, I think, is kind of what you're touching on here. And
Yep.
they use the word deconditioned, which means at some point they were conditioned, right? And I think that's where my thing is, if I'm dealing with someone who's unconditioned, who never been conditioned, there's no reconditioning. It's like they're like the governing systems that are going to auto-regulate their intensity or their output are so, I don't know if finely tuned is the right word, are so vigilant that we're not going to get anywhere close to injury, right? I mean, unless you're 80 pounds overweight and we got you like the Chinese Olympic team doing a fucking Jefferson curl or something like just really inanely stupid. I think for most people, again, the constraint of the exercise selection and their training age are going to kind of culminate in a amount of stimulus that should be, somewhat predictable as far as their ability to recover. I mean, unless they're just like a meth head and they're going home and eating their fucking toenails or something like that. Like, it's just a matter of, because I think you're not going to have an apples to apples comparison of a 50% increase in volume or intensity if one subject is doing barbell deadlifts and the other is doing a cable B stance RDL. Right? Like you go send it, go ahead, right? But I think it's about understanding how to toggle up patterns and movement qualities through different constraints, so I can meet someone where they're at and still have them working to something akin to subjective failure, right? Because if I take someone who's unconditioned, never trained, and I'm teaching some sort of hinge, and I give them the cable B stance RDL, and I load that within their ability to practice the skill enough times to learn it, right? I'm not going to do that for a 4-rep max because it provides me very little opportunities to actually learn the skill. When I sit down and play chopsticks on a fucking keyboard, I don't just go and then fucking walk away, right? I want to be there and have enough repetition so I actually can kind of form a prior that I can call on to execute on the next bout without introducing enough fatigue that I'm learning bad skill. So it's like, again, I still kind of maintain that like your goal is to be able to introduce enough constraints where you can, put in quality effort at a meaningful volume enough to learn the exercise, but still run into something that looks like a bottleneck of execution that you could call failure. And, I think it's the job of the trainer or the coach to have a repertoire of movements that drive movement qualities, right? The hinge would be a movement quality. You can talk about internal rotation of the hip or control of the pelvis or control of the trunk, whatever. But it's like you should be able to dial up and dial down your exercise selection to still improve the movement quality while being able to net move the overall loadability given the constraints. And those two things run inversely, right? If I'm just focusing on a movement quality, it's a very unloadable exercise, right? Like if I want to improve posterior expansion of the rib cage and I have someone done some 90-90 hip lift situation, it's like all movement quality, no load, not happening, right? But if I go like I really want to drive some stimulus to the upper back, I have this chest supported row and a pair of wrist straps, probably very little posterior expansion of the rib cage going on, and a ton of this, muscular adaptation. What exists? What are the exercises that exist between the chest-supported T-bar row with wrist straps and the 90-90 hip lift with a low or with a 90-degree reach? It's like, well, you're kind of in the same positions, but one is affording for no load, all movement quality. One is affording for all load, no movement quality. But there's exercises that exist in between that have this variability of like muscular challenges, strength, stimulus, response, adaptation, and movement quality, where we can go, okay, where are you? Where can we on this across this index of movements or across this gradient of movements go like, this variation is going to be a good mix of movement quality as a constraint and the ability for you to actually push to something that looks like failure in that movement and do it consistently, safely, because the movement quality will act as a constraint to overall loadability that allows you to do this safely and learn to how to do it to failure. And then we can take that quality and we just move it up through exercise selection. I don't know if any of that made sense.
It does. And I think the coaches listening are going to be like, yep. And I think the enthusiasts are going to be like, okay, I'm going to go back and listen to that again. But this is you. And guess what? You don't filter or like dumb down the way that you communicate. That's actually one of your pillars and principles. And I enjoy that about you. And it's a great opportunity, again, to shout out Prescript, because if people are actually really serious about this, don't have to be a coach to even go do that stuff. You can learn a lot about your own training there. You look like you got something to add to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, the human, I've sampled this a few times, but like Neil deGrasse Tyson had a quote about sort of like the cosmos. And he's like, the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you. The human body is the same thing. It's under no obligation to make sense to you. It's like, I hate this idea in the industry that's like, if you can't explain it to a 4-year-old, you can't explain it, you don't know it well enough. It's like, how are you? If I was flying, I travel a lot, you've kind of alluded to that.
Mm-hmm.
If I was on a plane and the pilot, wasn't feeling good, and he grabbed a 4-year-old from the back of the plane, it was like, hey, dog, it's a 737, not too difficult. I'm gonna go take a shit. You got this? We scared out of our fucking minds. We're like, we're going down. But every single day when we deal with something, look, and I'm sure, I mean, Boeing probably poses a whole nother bag of issues, but that's neither here nor there. Every single day, there's some shot across the bow of someone who does this professionally and, is supposed to solve very complex problems quickly with movement. That, when you explain something, it's too complicated. It's like, would you accuse your pilot of being too complicated in the way that he lands a plane? No? Then, like, you just can't. That dog doesn't hunt, man. It's so lazy for people to just expect. Like, if we had like Lawrence Krauss on the podcast and we were talking to Lawrence about, the Planck's constant and space time not being fundamental, we'd be sitting there going, what the fuck? But we wouldn't anticipate this. We wouldn't be entitled to knowing, the depths of astrophysics because we never studied it. But just because people have a dick and a set of hands, they're like, I should know the human body. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, what are you talking about? It's the human brain is one of the most complex things in the known universe. And everyone's like, oh, the bro doesn't know what he's talking about. It's like, you can't explain it to a 4-year-old. It's like, what type of fucking savant 4-year-old were you? You were eating fucking paint chips. Like, shut your fucking mouth. So annoying, dude. Thank you. Yeah, I refuse to, because look, I study this shit every single day. Like, dude, what's my desk right now? Like, the body movable. Like, this is what I'm thumbing through just for fun. It's like, I've been studying this shit for, what else do I fucking have here? Like, I don't know, like computational neuroscience. Like, I've read this book 7 times. I don't know what a single word means. But you expect a fucking 4-year-old, like, it's really frustrating. It's like, and there's, and you're one of them. We're trying to move this industry forward. Like, think, man, when we started, the stuff that we learned that was groundbreaking, that is commonplace now. Well, how did that happen? Someone took a risk and put it out there, and we were all like, yo, what? And now every Tom, Dick, and Harry personal trainer goes like, yeah, everyone knows that. It's like, take for granted that 15 years ago, Thibodeau, Francis, Tate, Meadows, whoever put that out, and everyone was like, holy shit. And it's like, yeah, we're still trying to do that. We've nowhere near arrived. Right. And it's just like, there's still just this accusation of like, oh, it's too complex. It's like, then fucking buy Bitcoin or whatever. Like, I don't fucking know. Like, get out of the fitness industry then. Nuts, dude.
You make me think about how much things I've downloaded that I've actually had to unlearn across my entire career. And it's a staggering amount. And we tend to think that, oh, now we're a place in time. Well, we always knew that. It's revisionist history. It's like, oh, no, I always knew that. No, most of the people here, the enthusiasts, the coaches, you believe shit right now. We all believe shit right now that we'll find out 5 years from now. Okay, that actually is not really an accurate representation. So I like to retain an open mind instead of, having this tribal belief system around these beliefs are sacred. I like to actually just, again, keep that open mind, expose myself to people like yourself who are reading textbooks like that, because I'm not going to read that shit. It's never going to happen. And that way you're a good communicator at giving it to someone like me, and I can turn around and I can actually translate the next level. So there's a self-selection in this. Anybody who's listening who thinks that you're hysterical and intellectual, they're going to go follow you on Instagram at _muscle_doc. They can go read your Substack, because I know you've been getting into a lot of neuroscience and brain shit on your Substack. That's great. I'm bullish on Substack. Anywhere else you want to send people?
Yeah, prescript.com. That's probably like, you know, if you're interested in what we're doing, www.pre-script.com. That's kind of like home base for all of the education stuff that we got going on.
This is beautiful. Jordan Shallow, everybody, thank you so much, brother. It's been great to have you on. And
thank you.
You'll be back. Hopefully, it won't be as long this time. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, see you, man.